Yeah,
Jeremy just drops the raw stuff tonight.
Don't we have like 2 in the pipe still? Yes.
Yeah, we have like 3 episodes and 5 mini episodes.
I'm pretty happy that
we still have a Carl one they haven't done.
I know, right? Wasn't there like the first
People
episode?
People are really sad when they figure out Carl died.
Oh, that's the intro.
It's not my fault he died. He should have missed the deer. I missed the deer.
Yeah. It was easy. Me and Brandon had the teamwork. Carl just sit there and didn't die. It was great.
Hello and welcome to Learned Wargame, the audio podcast. This is Brandon, or Mutilus on the forums, and I play Mercenaries.
This is Richard, still playing Protectorate. Might start some Grimkin soon. Still playing hockey.
What a heretic. Switching from Protectorate.
You could say I've been dreaming about this new faction.
Nice. Jeremey. I'm Jeremy. My name's Jeremy, and I play Magnus 1 and Twitter. Go ahead, Scott.
I do like the Twitter game.
My name's Seabass, and I play Trolls.
Nice. So, starting today, we have a new topic. We are going to ask a question to Scott about something that he cares a lot about. Scott, what do you call 4 bullfighters in quicksand? Cuatro cinco.
Yeah.
The look on Richard's face, I thought his head was literally going to explode.
That's amazing, God. That is amazing.
That's not amazing. That's horrible. You're bad people.
Let me explain to everyone at home why Scott is upset. It's because he hates sand because it's so coarse and it gets everywhere. I think I just broke the internet.
Jeremy, do not truncate silence.
Do not truncate silence. Oh, man. If anyone knows how to edit a podcast, they know what that means. Good call, Jeremy. All right.
That's some good stuff.
Oh, boy. All right, so today Scott asked us if we could talk about painting, because Scott likes to paint. Well, it's not specifically painting, hobbying in general. And since Scott has hung up off the call now, it's going to be quite a short cast.
I'm still here.
Oh, yay! We still have Scott.
The 3 stages of me and Brandon hobbying. We're going to talk about that. I want to play more games, so I don't want to paint.
Hey, let's introduce the actual topic real quick. Some people, remember, we haven't talked about anything yet.
That's fair.
So, Scott, go and take us into your Hobbysode plans.
So, essentially, at this time in the year, players may not be able to get in a lot of games. But if you look at like the painting groups and stuff, a lot of people are getting like a lot of work done on their armies and stuff because it's just the time of year it is. Like you have these like random pockets of time where you can do stuff. So I thought it might be kind of a cool idea since we're all pretty ingrained into the hobby to kind of talk about what we're painting, what we're working on. Maybe talk about some of the tools we use. And talk about what some of our aspirations are, things that we want to get done, like what we're working on. I thought it might be kind of cool, like a nice little change of pace to just kind of talk about the other half of the hobby that I don't think ever, and I mean ever, gets talked about on the podcast, which is actually doing the work.
We actually did a 12-hour live stream where we did nothing but paint and talk about painting.
And where is that?
You deleted it. Well, you as in the internet. So. Apparently, Twitch deletes your saved streams after a certain amount of time.
Nice.
I may have to publish my Resident Evil 7 videos to YouTube.
Where you had the heart monitor hooked up and it was like...
They made a 7th Resident Evil?
You didn't know that? Like, really didn't know that?
I actually didn't know that.
Their logo is actually pretty cool because they used Roman numerals and evil is 7. So,
that's
because
pretty
it's
cool.
the VI. Yeah. The logo is pretty cool, but it was an interesting game. We were just sitting there watching Scott stream critiquing their modeling on a 1911. Like, that was pretty funny. It's like, Scott, you're gonna get killed in this next corner. He's like, why? It's like, well, the hammer's not back on your 1911, so it's impossible to fire it because it's a single action pistol.
Andy looked down the barrel.
Yeah, and he was looking down the barrel of his gun. It was like, we were just critiquing Scott with his gun safety.
If any of it was still ready to fire, would it had enough stopping power for Scott?
Probably, because it's 1911, so...
But they make that in a bunch of calibers now.
They do, but...
I even have a 22 version.
Yeah, well, I mean, no self-respecting adult buys a non-45 caliber version.
Well, I didn't buy it.
That is not true. There are lots of people who own 38 Super because they're all competition shooters.
Yeah, but they're not self-respecting, though.
They're done right. What's that?
I said they're not self-respecting, then.
Oh, no. They're very self-respecting.
I don't think so.
I know some of these guys. They're pretty amazing. Like, 38 Super is where you want to be if you're a competition shooter. It's an amazing cartridge. I am getting
There's
way
just
off
not
topic.
enough stopping power, though, so...
Oh my God! Stop with this. So when we talk about hobby,
It's trying so hard.
But Scott, we are in the hobby of shooting.
Yeah.
We love it.
I don't want to alienate every listener who listens to this podcast by talking about guns. So we're going to talk about hobby stuff.
But
'cause that's what we're
Scott,
say.
the people that listen to us are conservative.
Well, we know that because we've driven all the liberals away with our hate speak.
Except me. Still here.
Oh my God. When are you going to leave?
I mean, we got rid of Spence and
That's true.
basically Carl.
I can't believe they
Yep.
made it that long.
Carl's on a road trip, right? He's
Yeah,
out
he's-
doing
yeah.
like cool stuff.
Are you traveling to Denver, or is he already there?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. So, is there anything specifically you want to do first, Scott, or should we just go into like what we've been working on?
Yeah, let's just talk about what we've been working on. Go ahead, Brandon.
All right. Last time I painted was before Warmachine weekend.
Shocker.
I painted to get my list legal
Shocker.
to play in a tournament. Failed to get it done because I was not motivated, and then borrowed some models, which I hate doing. So I definitely, that was the first time in a long time I failed to get stuff painted for a tournament, but I just, like, my heart was not in it because I didn't care about the models I was painting. But before that, for the WTC, I painted almost an entire Legion of Steel army in about a week, and it's probably closer to a week and a half. And I also painted, I think it was 5 or 6 Warjacks for my Vlad list. Vlad won some solos. So let's see, it was 3 units of Iron Fang Pikemen with UAs, 2 Greylord Forge Seers. I touched up my mechanics, finished up Behemoth, who was like 90% done. I just needed to like put some details on him. And then painted 5 Marauders. Vlad won. Strakov 2. And I think that was it. Oh, and Markov, the Cav solo. And so that was the last thing I painted. They're in my typical like pre-shaded red for Khador. It's basically a over-dramatized red-black contrast.
Did you get the new trick yet?
Yeah, she was given to me by some of the staffers at PP because I helped them with their streaming at Warmachine weekend. I haven't put it together yet because I haven't played that list, but she looks kind of cool. I mean, the rules look amazing. I can't wait to get her on the table.
Yeah.
I'm actually, unfortunately, not really having... Like, I don't feel the drive to play with Mercs that I did with Khador. So I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's, like, they're just not grabbing me. But, like, I think my lists are good. I don't feel the drive to play. And it might be that it's just the time of year where it's, like, kind of like the off-season. But I need to get more games in. I just haven't been playing.
Right.
And it might be that my work schedule shifts. So I work on both nights that we play. So I don't want to... like grab the first game available and like have someone sitting there when I'm like basically working. Like, well, I should wait for everybody else to get a game in, and then by then it's too late. Nobody else wants to play. But
I've also been working 6 days a week, so I haven't been able to stay super late on Mondays to make the late games happen. So for me, the last thing I did was also before Warmachine weekend. I painted a bunch of knights, but the queue for me right now is Revelator, which will probably be the first done. Then I need to get 2 Paladins done, Forge Guard Idrians, and I really want to paint my Metal Errants in my... So basically the only color scheme I believe in is some form of dark color with red and gold trim. But So I kind of want to paint the Metal Errants, but also I don't plan on playing Exemplar Interdiction anytime soon, so yeah. That's really the painting table.
That just sounds like a mistake. All exemplars, all the time. Screw paladins. Screw everything else. All exemplar.
If I ever get time to paint, I will probably paint my Revelator first, because I do actually enjoy painting huge bases for some reason, even though I despise painting.
The larger model is typically the easier it is to paint.
It is. I really did enjoy painting my storm wall.
I feel the opposite. But might be just painting style.
It's more that the larger model has like larger surfaces, so it's easier to take your mind off of when you're doing it.
I mean, sure. No, it's just strictly harder, although there's generally less detail per square inch, so there's less fiddly detail.
Yes, that's what I meant.
Okay, so if you're trying to avoid that, but I mean, the skill it requires to paint a large model at a high level, I think, is more difficult.
I don't
because
think
you have to, if you're trying to avoid like the brush strokes or the like, you know, imperfections or like actually shading the full piece. Like if you're talking about like a Judicator shoulder pad, you're trying to shade that, like, because you can't really wash it when it's that size because your wash pools on flat surfaces because they're too big, and so it creates more issues that generally are harder to overcome. But yeah, obviously if you're just like, you know, tank brushing the whole model, then it doesn't matter.
I mean, I don't think I've ever been accused of carrying how my models turn out.
I'm just saying, like, at the higher the skill goes up, larger models are actually harder.
Sorry.
Yeah, I agree 100%. It doesn't bother me as much. Like, painting units is kind of boring sometimes, but I'd rather paint a 10-man unit or a couple 10-man units than paint a huge base model any day of the week.
Like, especially when you're talking about, like, a Mountain King or, like, a Archangel. Like, there's just so much detail and highlighting and shading that you have to do in these large areas that is very time-consuming.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Painting my Mountain King is one of the most arduous painting tasks I've ever underwent. Like, it was worse than painting a Galleon, worse than painting a Stormwall, worse than painting a Judicator. Like, it was the hardest model I've ever. It's the most difficult model I've ever.
Have you tried that Sea King yet?
I have not. He's sitting in a box. I haven't got him put together. I actually haven't put together him or my Glacier King.
That's kind of surprising.
List philosophy goes a lot into it. I'm not the world's biggest fan of huge base models. So, like, I have to have a really compelling reason to play them. So I played 2 War Wagons in Grim 2 because they're war wagons. Like, dear God. So I played 2 of them in Grim 2, but that's honestly about as that and a Mountain King. Like, I'm pretty hard pressed to play a Mountain King in some lists. But I haven't found myself in a situation where I'm like, oh, I have to have a Sea King for this list, or oh, I have to have a Glacial King for this list.
Yeah, that's fair. I do not enjoy playing huge base models because they're clunky, but...
Well, that and they're less effective now, I think. Are you efficient?
Non-battleish ones, yes.
The quantity of the game, a Colossal generally was in command of the board the entire time it was on the table.
Right.
The quantity of model increase means that there are enough jacks around to kill them. Like, it got to the point where, like, if you're playing 1 Colossal versus 2 Juggernauts, which was, like, roughly equivalent points. Like, it's a little more expensive, obviously, but, like, it's similar. Like, it's not similar anymore. Like, the other models got so much cheaper, and the Colossals really didn't. And so when you're staring down 3 Crusaders, maybe even 4 for the cost of your huge base model, then you're like, well, I can't just go in, kill 2 heavies, and be pretty safe anymore. Like, those other 2 Crusaders are going to fucking tear you a new one. So their piece trading is very difficult and very hard to actually play out on the table. So you need some kind of, like, board control element to keep them from getting swarmed.
Yeah, and with me, a lot of times what I'm painting is predicated by what I'm directly playing. Mm-hmm. So that's why I just haven't... I mean, I will eventually get them, because I am a unit of scouts and a unit of bushwhackers and the Sea King, Glacial King, and Swamp Troll, and like a couple other minor pieces away from having the faction painted in full. Mm-hmm. So it's definitely a goal, and I'm definitely looking towards it.
Is that like one of everything in faction, or is that everything you own in faction?
That's one of everything in faction. That's not everything I own.
Okay.
Like, I'll be working on my second unit of Fenblades.
Yeah.
I'll be working on them. I am working on them right now. I'll be working on them long before I work on Glacial King. I'm working on Northkin Raiders, Bears, stuff like that. Like, I'll be working on that stuff, and long before I finish a Sea King.
Cool.
As far as me, what's on my painting desk? It's Northkin, and a second unit of Fenblades. How about you, Jeremy?
Well, last few privateer models I've tried to put together, there have been issues with. So I'm kind of down on privateer right now.
You got some mixed up kits, or you got
missing bits and miscasts. So it's kind of like,
I actually haven't had a mispack or like a miscast in quite a while. Actually, I'm trying to think of the last time. Last time I personally purchased something that was missing or miscast. I got some secondhand stuff that was like new in box that was missing pieces, but I don't know that the person didn't lose that. You know what? I have a list on my phone. I usually keep it running, like, because I have so many things that aren't assembled that I usually just keep a running list.
Yeah, my Metal Errands order was mispack. I don't have shoulder pads, but I'm way too lazy to deal with that right now. I ended up planning on playing them. So.
I was interested in some Guild Ball stuff, but they just announced that basically if you have the plastic stuff, you don't have to paint it.
Huh?
For Guild Ball.
No, but like, what do you mean? Sorry, I'm not familiar.
Their organized play document now says if it's PVC plastic, which is all their new stuff, you don't have to paint it for their tournaments.
Was the Guild Ball plate painted, or?
It used to be, yeah. So that's kind of killed my desire for that.
Why did they make that a rule? It has to be their new kits?
Yeah.
Or is that just because they don't think people have had time to paint it? Or
Well, they announced basically if you buy anything early from them, it's legal.
Even unpainted?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's kind of...
I can understand that.
Yeah, but allowing it to be always legal when some of their stuff they sell like 3-4 months before everyone else gets it.
Oh, so it's not legal that day, it's just legal.
Correct, it's legal forever.
Oh, so it's just, were you at the head of the line kind of stuff.
That and a lot of people are afraid scalping's going to go really bad now.
Yeah, because you get there, you stay up, you like basically camp out in line.
Yeah.
But I hopefully they have a 1 per customer limit. But even then, you could probably get like 4 or 5 people to hang out with you and buy stuff, even if they don't want it.
Because some of the like $50 box kits were going for like $200 on eBay.
Yeah.
That was before they were legal.
So I just want to make sure I understand this. If it is in the new material, it is not required to be painted. If it's old material, it is required to be painted.
Correct.
That's done.
Yep.
I could see if they like released a bunch of new model lines like right before a big event, making that like an exception. But having it be the rule seems a little odd.
But you can just make the exception for the event. But
no, right? That's what I'm saying. If it was an exception, I think it'd be okay. But the fact that is just their rule going forward, that's not great.
I think I found something that's upset me more than painting requirements, and that's inconsistent painting requirements.
Yeah.
Well, it's that and just, hey, this kit isn't out for 4 months, but if you bought it at this convention, it is. Like, you haven't had a chance to play against it. But here you go.
Yeah, it's not super fun.
No. It's like, Borka was out for, 3 months or so before his official release, like at Privateer?
Yeah, maybe. Butcher 3 was their biggest outlier because he was official pre-sale, not going to be out for a while, and he's in the collector's box. And he was almost 6 or 7 months before his actual release date. And he was legal, and that was an issue. Like, that was a pretty noticeable impact.
Did you know somebody that went to Gen Con?
I did.
Yep, you're fine.
Nope. He said he would get me one, and didn't.
Oh, that's unfortunate.
Yeah, and but mainly because you could have bought them online. Like, if I had just known that I wasn't going to get one from the guy in line, I would have ordered one online, but I didn't want to pay shipping. So I was like, I knew a guy that had a VIP pass who was going to get it an hour before because he had a media pass. And he didn't go to that booth first and went to some board game booth first, bought the board game, came back, and then didn't get one. And then the board game he bought was on our shelf at the store because it released the weekend of the con. So he went and bought that game and then came back and then like paid full retail price and could have got 10% off by buying it in store. And we had it on the shelf when he got back. I'm like, you piece of shit. I was so mad about that.
But no, right now I'm creating and painting miniatures for Betrayal in Baldur's Gate.
Mm-hmm.
So replacing all the little monster tokens with actual minis.
Cool.
Nice. So I can say from a painting perspective, like this is kind of like it's the part of the hobby that like everybody does. Like there's a couple people. I think it's kind of rare to find someone who actually paints because they enjoy painting. I think most people paint because it's just that thing that you should do or you have to do, or this tournament that you really want to play in is painting required or whatever, like the Invitational or the WTC or Lock and Load or whatever the case may be. And that's why people end up finding themselves painting a lot. Do you guys think that? Do you guys feel like fully painted models, painted armies, are necessary for the immersion of the game?
I do not. However,
Okay.
I do see the perks of it. I think a lot of people that are heavily for painting do miss the perks of the opposite side of if we do paint it only, look at like the drawing power it has because of all the cool, like interesting paint schemes you see and all the well-painted armies. And it's certainly more drawing to the public eye that isn't in the game. But on the same turnaround, like you lose just as many, if not more people that have no interest in hobbying and have the interest on the game side. And having run events for over 10 years now, like I'm pretty certain that it's not quite an even split. I think you actually gain more people by not having painting requirements, which is why I've tried to go to give people a benefit of some kind for having painted stuff. Like when you come to my events, like we do a raffle drawing for door prizes at the end. You get one ticket if you played, one ticket if you had a painted army. So you get twice the chance to win the raffles, and you have the opportunity to win Best Painted, which pays out more than first place usually. So I try and encourage people to paint as much as I can, but I'm never going to tell someone they can't play because they don't have painted stuff.
Yeah. Well, like in Mayhem does it painted
And arcs.
yeah.
And you're in a separate draft pool than everybody else.
Yeah.
Which means that other people can't win the prize that you could win, so which is cool. I definitely don't like telling people they can't play because there are a lot of people, like I was one of them, like I had absolutely no interest in painting. Like painting was nothing I wanted to have anything to do with, and I had no artistic background at all. I had never painted anything. Like literally never did watercolors, never did anything. I'd never touched paint before. And I got into War for 40K and they were like, "Oh, you need to paint the stuff if you want to play in the tournament." I'm like, "Well, but I don't want to paint anything." It's like, "Well, you can't play in a tournament." I was like, "So I shouldn't play this game?" I was literally like, I almost walked away from the game when they told me I couldn't play. I was like,
You almost lucked out. Almost.
To be fair, I got into really into Warmachine because of painting.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, we had a local that had the Menoth faction.
Yeah.
And I saw his paint scheme and it's like, I'm going to paint this.
Was that Dugan?
Yeah. And then Dugan's like, "Oh, are you going to outpaint me now?" I'm like, "Yeah." I still haven't painted Menoth yet.
Yeah. How's Jameson's Protector coming? Gave up on that too?
I mean, the stuff he has is painted.
To like one unit, one jack.
I mean,
he's always jumping projects so heavily. Now, to be fair, I jump projects too. I just don't paint that often.
Yeah, but trying to find people to play in Waterloo, Iowa.
You can fucking drive to Des Moines, or there's a Waterloo gaming crew. I've met them. Don't say there's not. Like I ran a tournament in Des Moines. 4 of them showed up from Waterloo, and I'm like, "Oh, do you guys know Jameson?" They're like, "Who's that?" Like they had no idea. So don't say it's because he doesn't have opponents. It's probably because he's a dickbag and he drives people away.
I don't know. Have you seen the size of the game stores there? No, you haven't.
No. He has a house.
Okay.
We're having a podcast on my 6x4 table I built that I can play games on if I want to.
Yeah, and this is like twice as much space as the game stores have.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, like the hobby I get pushed away by requiring hobby.
Assemble your miniatures.
I do assemble my miniatures.
Well, there you go. You met one requirement, now meet the next.
No. I hate painting. It's work. It's tedious work, and I get some paint, and it feels good, and then I buy more stuff.
Look at that! Look at how much paint is on that.
Yeah. I don't know that we can call what you do tedious work.
That's fair. I loathe painting, though. It's just not something I enjoy.
I don't enjoy, certainly I didn't used to, but you can learn a lot of techniques that take the tediousness away from painting a lot more than you think you'd probably expect. And it doesn't take a lot to learn those and do a little bit different. Like a lot of the work you do could be replicated by either an airbrush or even spray cans, and then it cuts out a lot of the tedious work, which means that you don't get annoyed when you paint, which means you can get more done and make your stuff look better. That's right. So, but I mean, most people don't know where to go to get the information or the knowledge, like to accomplish
YouTube.
those
Always
things.
go to YouTube.
YouTube has a lot of painting tutorials. They'll show you really easily how to make your
Especially
stuff look
if
better
you go
with
to
very little effort.
Mini Wargaming.
Mini Wargaming.
They have a lot of like little quick tips and
Yeah.
how to paint this color.
I took some classes from Les from Awesome Paint Job. He has a YouTube channel. I don't know if he does a lot of intro videos, but he seemed like someone who could really teach you how to do the basics really quickly. Mainly just look for like quick cheats. Like most people are like, I'm painting my Space Marines, and like they give up halfway through because like, it's so annoying. But like, you don't need to ever hold like a real brush when you're painting a Space Marine. Like there's so many things you can do that literally like you can pump an army out quicker than you would believe.
Well, I mean, step one is prime your base color. And
No,
then you're like
that's
95%.
not. But that's why people don't know how to do it, because they just like they just
I
like
agree.
pick it up somewhere else. Like there's so many little things you can do that like let you get, instead of like a basic like crayon level looking paint job, to a solid tabletop quality without actually probably putting in less effort than you did originally. They just don't know what they're doing.
That's right.
I
I
still like that I
literally
had-
don't care, though.
I still like that I had a guy paint black over my car.
If you don't care though, then don't paint your stuff. No,
Yeah,
but
like
I'm serious. Like, there's no point in picking up a brush if you're not going to take the time to learn how to do it right. Because your stuff would look so much better. So if you don't care at all, then just prime it green and say it's painted, like, or just don't. Like, I would rather play against a not painted army than like a horribly painted army.
That's right.
I really would, because like when people are like, this model is blue/red/bare metal, like in some parts, like, just don't paint it. Like, I can't even tell what that is. It looks like a blob of color. Like I'd just rather play against actual base, like, metal and plastic. Like, people are like, I prime my army black. That way it looks better. I'm like, no, it doesn't. I can't tell what any of that shit is.
Especially when in a WYSIWYG game. Like,
God.
what? Is that a bolter or plasma gun?
It depends on what he needs that turn, Jeremy.
Ah, right. Right. That's why you say kami.
I know for me, I kind of have I have to agree with the concept that like if you're going, because like painting is just kind of I don't want to say the necessary evil, because you don't have to paint your stuff. Like if you don't have any intentions of playing in the Invitational, going to the WTC, or playing at Lock and Load or on a stream, most of the time you don't need to have your stuff painted. There's no reason. So it's not a requirement of the hobby. If you are going to do it though, I agree with Brandon. There are a lot of techniques and there's a lot of equipment that you can get that will just make your life much easier.
Mm-hmm. And a lot of people immediately go to the cost of said equipment. It's really not that expensive. And a lot of it can be emulated with, or like have an option that is much cheaper. Like people hear airbrush and they just assume like $300 or $400. Like you can get an actual working, functional, quality airbrush for less than $100 with compressor if you know how to go find it. Like,
yeah, grab that 40% off Hobby Lobby coupon. Their airbrushes are all right.
There's some online dealers, like wholesale dealers, you can get even cheaper than that too.
Well, and on top of that too, like, know what you're buying, and then don't be afraid to look in the secondary market. Like a lot of times you can get like, I can't count how many times I've seen people sell Badger Patriot 105s, which if there has ever been, in my opinion, the perfect entry-level airbrush, it is the Badger Patriot 105.
No, a lot of HPCS.
Disagree.
I disagree.
I would also
Badger 105 is a copy of it.
I actually like the Badger Renegade Chrome.
Oh, I like the Chrome as a detail brush.
Right, but I like it because you can get
Yeah.
It's still a workhorse. Like, it still does all the basic stuff.
Yeah.
And it's almost impossible to fuck
last
up.
year at Adapticon, they had all the basically tutorial rooms, Badger 105s. He was selling them for like $35 after all the classes.
And they've been used like 4 times or something.
Yeah.
And cleaned properly afterwards. Like, even in like knowing all the little ins and outs, like airbrushing is super intimidating because it is a skill, but it is a learnable skill. It's not a talent.
Right.
It's not something that you're naturally born with. You can learn how to airbrush, and it's not that hard. And until you're doing the extremely intricate, like painting, like if you're trying to paint like flames with an airbrush, and obviously that's difficult. But like the stuff we're doing, we're just putting block color on.
Right.
That's really easy if you just understand what you're doing. And a lot of times people will get frustrated with airbrushing because they'll get into it and not know what they're doing wrong. They just know it's not working. And so because you don't have the knowledge to fix the problem, you just think it's not working and you just get frustrated.
Yeah, especially when you get your first clog.
Mm-hmm.
That really...
Yeah, that's the worst, right? So you just get, like, for me, my first airbrush, because I'm clearly not very intelligent and didn't listen to anybody. So my first airbrush was a Badger Sotar 2020F.
Good job. For people that don't know, that's like the most detailed airbrush you can basically buy.
That is, you don't use paint, you use ink.
Yeah.
Exactly, right? Like it is like it's the Maserati of airbrushes, and it's designed as an artist's, like a studio artist illustrator's brush, right? So you use inks and watercolors in it. And so I bought this because people online said, yeah, this is great for painting models. Didn't understand. So I fire this thing up, I'm diluting my stuff. I can't figure it out. I'm pulling my hair out. And
you're like, you're going to spray it through and just nothing comes out.
Understand.
It's like,
yeah, exactly.
Fucking pass a cotton ball through an airbrush.
I cranked the PSI up to 200 and nothing.
Yeah, I mean, literally, like it's super frustrating. So, but what happened is I had a buddy of mine slow down, take his time, started kind of walking me through like what the process of how to use that airbrush is, and then found out that I shouldn't be shooting at 30 psi. I should be shooting at like 10.
Yeah.
Found out that like it's okay to shoot acrylics through a Sotar. I have 2 Sotars now. I use them like I have 2 Sotars, a Renegade RK1, a Chrome. I have a 200 NH and a Patriot 105. And I use those 2 Sotar 2020s. I have one that's a 2020S and one that's a 2020F. The S has like a super small cup, and the F has like a bigger paint cup. It's the only functional difference between the two. And like, you know, like until you learn, like, oh, these are the things you're doing wrong. Like they said to thin your paint down to like skim milk consistency. That's always like the rule of thumb people give you.
Yeah.
But until you actually see that it's actually thinner than skim milk, like it's like skim milk consistency, like times 911 to shoot it through a Sotar, or like a Harder and Steenbeck Infinity or something like that.
And filter.
Because the needle is so, yeah, exactly. Because the needle is so fine and the spray regulator and everything is super tiny. So it has to be like essentially liquid. It has to be like pure liquid. You know, it's small things like that like you really have to like get a hold of it. And I think you have to get a hold of someone who either knows what it is or do a lot of research. And the problem, I think, is that that's a huge barrier to the hobby side of the world. And I think that's why the hobby side of the world kind of gets looked at, not necessarily negatively, because I've never taken my trolls to the tournament, and people looked at me and been like, oh, nice trolls, I bet you wasted a lot of time, loser. Like, no one's ever said that. Like, no one ever would. Okay, maybe no one ever would. But
I love that you said maybe right as Jeremy raised his hand. It was amazing.
But I have had a lot of people come up to me and been like, man, like, how long have you been painting trolls to be able to do that? Because, like, my troll army it's not like a Golden Demon army. But it is a very good-looking army. It's very crisp, it's very clean. The colors are well-defined.
Golden Demon.
I'm sorry, Brandon, what was that?
I said the 5-color rule is Golden Demon. Golden Demon has had many different, let's say...
I just want to clarify.
What's the proper word for this?
Brandon, I just want to clarify. They upped it from 4.
Mm-hmm. No, like there at some points, Golden Demon was a big deal.
Yeah,
and they've really gotten more lax about what's a golden demon at these points.
That's fair.
And part of it is probably
not...
like the popularity of the events has also really affected it. Like obviously when you have 5,000 people showing up for an event and entering golden demon entries versus when you have 120 people, like you're going to get different variances, and the golden demon is simply best of the day, or like, you know, like there's categories and it's like basically first through like third depending on the size of the event.
I think that and the popularity of Crystal Brush.
Yeah, Crystal Brush has destroyed golden demon basically. It's just a different event, and now everyone.
Well, that is basically like we don't limit you to GW models.
Yeah, we don't restrict you to GW models, and we give you cash. Like, oh, you won. Here's $10,000 in money, and you're like, oh yeah, I'm gonna go to that one. So all the really big, a lot of the really big painters have moved over to that.
Yeah,
and it has opened up the competition level, and like the popularity of GW events during the editions of 6th and 7th dwindled dramatically. So like there's reasons it's not that Golden Demon is allowing worse people to win it. It's just, you know, product of the situation.
Sure, and I should have said, like, it's not Crystal Brush or professional level.
Yeah.
But my troll army is every bit above tabletop quality.
Oh sure.
And it's a very sharp looking army, and it looks good, and I'm proud of it. And people often will say things like, "Well, how long did that take you to do?" Well, the reality to it is like if you learn some techniques, and you actually like invest yourself in the ability and buy good equipment. I think people like if you learn the correct techniques and you get the right equipment, it doesn't take you as long to produce a good tabletop quality standard. Brandon, you know, you have proven that you can paint models exceptionally well. Jeremy, obviously, I love his Merc army. But you also have, like, your army looks extremely good as a tabletop standard army, right? Like, when you look at, like, all of your iron things on the table, and none of those are painted to a master class standard, but they don't have to be. They're rank and file troops, and they all work together with each other to give the army a very specific look, and that look works, and it looks very good. And I think if people would bother to learn techniques, they could produce armies that may not be able to look as good as your Khador do, because you've had a long time to refine that technique and you know exactly how you're using it. But they can produce armies that look with a similar style to how your Khador would look, or my Circle Orboros or my Khador would look. They could produce models that could look like that. And it wouldn't take them anywhere near as much time as I think people think. And I think the other problem, too, is that people have a tendency to kind of get it in their head that they look at like these models painted by like Dallas Kemp, which he's an exceptionally good artist, or they look at people painted like they look at these Crystal Brush thinners, and then people get it in their head that like, well, I have to paint that way, and the reality to it is no, you don't. You don't have to paint that well. If you want to paint that well, like I congratulate you on your attempt of the journey, and you know, have fun. It's a lifelong journey. And you're working at it for a while, so enjoy it. But for everybody else, you really don't have to do that. You don't have to go that far down the rabbit hole to make a good-looking army. And getting good-looking armies on the table to play against each other, it does, one, it sells the game better. It absolutely sells the game better. And number two, it really does, like, for me, it really does help the immersion in the game. Like, it's really cool when I see all these iron things, like, running across the table, and you can see, like, the cloaks billowing and the steel on the spears and stuff. Like, it's super cool to me. That's one of the reasons why I play the game, is because I want to see, like, gigantic stompy robots and stompy beasts pick the crud out of each other. And so when you have fully painted models, like, it sells that idea. It sells the iconography. It sells the narrative of the game. Real quick, I do want to kind of touch base on equipment. I know I'm probably running a little bit.
We don't have a time limit, Scott.
But I know we're also trying not to do like 5-hour marathon podcasts anymore too. So
it's fine
for the sake of Jeremy, for Jeremy's sanity.
I lost that a long time ago.
Yeah. Well, now that he doesn't have to truncate silence, it's going to take like 30 seconds to edit.
Right. Exactly.
Wait, what?
I hate you so much. So, anyways, we talked a little bit about airbrushes, but something I think people tend not to do, and they probably should look at it, is they tend to use less effective brushes.
Yes.
I know a lot of people who will buy acrylic or not acrylic, but they'll buy a synthetic fiber brush.
Ew, gross.
And synthetics have their place and they have their uses. But they're not going to ever, they will never hold water as well. They will never trap the paint. They will never have the bend, the snap, the retention. They'll never have those qualities that a good natural fiber brush will. And I think one of the reasons why people tend to buy synthetics is because people look at the cost of a good natural and it puts them off, right? So if people look at the cost of like a Winsor Newton Series 7, that's an expensive brush comparatively speaking. Like it's like a Winsor Newton Series 7 single lot brush, size 0 single lot, is what? They're $17.99, $19.99 a piece, I think, something like that.
Yeah,
Well, that's not
roughly
too bad.
20 or so. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's certainly that's the biggest difference that ever happened in my painting. Like, even getting an airbrush. When I went from crappy GW brushes, which honestly at the time were like $12. Like, when you're talking about paying $12 for a shitty... I mean, it's natural hair. Like, there's nothing special about the old GW brushes. Yeah. They were garbage. They were good wash brushes, but they were priced like they were high detail. And I started getting...
But they were labeled as fine detail, Brandon.
Right. I used to be getting... I went and got the Klinsky Sable Vallejo brushes, and they're roughly like 20 a piece, I think. But you could get like a set of 3 of aught through 2 for like 40 or 45. And like it makes a big difference, and you notice immediately. Like, your brushes don't fray. It's easy to keep a point. They hold a lot of paint. And a lot of the simple things, like the reason some people shouldn't own nice brushes because they don't know how to take care of brushes. And it's not hard, but it's just like simple things most people don't know, like never get paint more than like halfway up the bristles.
Right.
Don't get paint anywhere near the phallic, which is the metal thing on the end. Like, don't get paint in there because it'll fuck up your brush.
You mean the ferrule?
Ferrule?
Right?
Ferrule?
Ferrule. Ferule. Ferrule.
Ferrule. Ferrolio?
Yep, ferrule. Yep, that's the ferrule of the brush.
Okay, so don't get ferrule. Don't get paint in the ferrule, because it will cause your brush to fray and split end, basically. How to properly clean your brushes. It's not hard. Just get some brush soap, and there's multiple different kinds of brush cleaner you can get. But just watch some quick tutorials, and you can get like brush cleaners like 99 cents for more than you'll ever use.
Well, like I had really good luck with the Privateer Studio brushes.
Oh, yeah.
I've had one for 10 years, and just now is it starting to lose a point.
Nice.
And it was like an $11 brush.
Yeah.
So, I mean...
I still use a lot of the newer GW line, and a lot of my old Vallejo brushes. I've got some of the Games and Gears travel brushes. Those are okay.
I hate those. I hate those so much.
Yeah, so most brushes have like this nice gradual point. The Games and Gears brush start with a very wide ferrule, and they go just diagonally into a point. Like, they're very short brushes, so they don't hold a lot of paint.
You got a point?
Yeah, they split. They're horribly famous for splitting. Mine curl a lot.
Yeah. Mine start off curled, and then as soon as you get them wet, just spread apart.
I do like how travelable they are, though. Like if you're just doing some basic painting, not high detail, they're great to throw. Like, I throw in my toolbox, I can go paint at work. Like,
but a nice paintbrush case will fix that too.
Yeah, you can buy it. Like, take care of your brushes if you're going to do anything beyond slapping paint on models.
Right.
And you'll notice that will help you more than it will get you to the next level more than any amount of effort will. Like, just getting the proper equipment, like Scott was saying. Like, knowing that you have what your quality brushes are, what they're for. Don't like press them into a corner. Like, don't bend the bristles on stuff that you don't need to. Don't jab them into corners trying to get paint there. Like, use your cheap throwaway brushes for what they should be used for. Don't put wash in a high quality brush.
You can, but you don't have to slather it.
Right. Know what you're doing.
Yeah.
Like you should treat it like your favorite pet. Like, there's the pet that stays outside, then there's the pet that lives in the house, and like, be nice to that one. Like,
as someone who's not super invested in the hobby side, what I get from this conversation is that you think basically people are investing less in the hobby side than they should because they see, this brush is more expensive, even though the returns from the brush are much greater than the actual price difference.
Like, people get into the hobby, and like, atypical, you'll see a new guy at the store, and you can spot it immediately, or someone who doesn't give a shit they carry the shit around in a shopping bag. Like, they've got a bunch of paints, bunch of brushes, washes, all their shit is just dumped in a bag. And that's fine. Like, if you want to carry your shit around a bag, that's fine. But everyone everyone that knows what they're doing knows exactly what you're here for. You're here to learn the very basics, or you don't give a fuck. Those are the two states. And so when you walk into a store, that
and
guy's
if
got a shit in
you're
the
that
shopping
guy,
bag.
don't get pissed off when people are like, well, why am I not painting as well as you?
Yeah, and also the biggest frustration is just like when people send you a list, like, what do you think of this list? It's so annoying when people walk you like, what do you think of this paint job? If you are asking for approval because you're like, look how good I did, like, go up to someone and say, look how good I did. Like, don't ask them what they think of a model.
Ask them what you can do better.
Their goal is that they should be telling you what they honestly think. And if they're too busy trying to not hurt your feelings because you can't take it, just go like, hey, look what I did. Isn't this cool? I painted my first model. Like, approach it in that way. Don't go, what do you think? And like hand it to the best painter in the store, because the worst thing he can do is tell you what he honestly thinks. Like, it's not fair to him.
Right.
But
Well, I think, like, to kind of piggyback on that a little bit, I think people don't necessarily invest enough into the hobby equipment. But I think people also kind of get sticker shocked a little bit by what the hobby equipment actually costs. For example, for someone who's just walking into a game store, like Brandon said, and they're just like, I want to learn how to paint because I want to play this game and I want to paint my models. Well, okay, that's fine. There's a lot of products you can sell that person.
yeah.
I would not sell that person Winsor Newton Series 7 or Raphael 8209s
You're
or
literally throwing them in the
8409s.
trash if you do that.
Exactly. Like, there's no good reason. But there are very good brushes that might not be Kolinsky sable. They'll be like red sable, which is the next, like, Kolinsky sable is like the holy grail of natural fibers for brushes. Right below Kolinsky sable is red sable. Red sable is still an extremely good fiber. It's still an extremely good hair to build a brush from.
Especially if you get the tip.
Absolutely.
Sweet red sable tip.
Wait, I'm sorry, Jeremy. Say that again, because I think I heard you say something different.
I said sweet red sable tip.
Is Kolinsky sable not the tip? Is it just part of the tail?
Right.
Is that why the tip is like the $200 brush?
Yes.
Because it's the natural point of the hair. Yeah. And in case anybody doesn't know, these are horse tails we're talking about.
No.
Is it not? I thought most
No.
brushes were
It's
horse
not
tail.
horse.
No, they're kind of they're related to like ferrets and.
Oh, I thought most brush hair came from horses.
Oh.
Okay.
No.
That's the reason they were banning a lot of them, because they thought they were like skinning these animals for the fur.
Oh.
Because they're mainly found in Russia.
Oh, okay.
So a lot of like mink coats are actually sable.
Okay.
So that's why they were the big ban on them for a while.
Exactly. That's why there was a big restriction on importing Winsor Newton Series 7s into the U.S. for like a year and a half.
And then they realized that they're not killing the animals, they're just cutting their hair.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oops.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is basically like, hey, you don't want this for skinning because we cut the hair off.
Yeah.
And if anybody wants to support my red sable sanctuary, I'm trying to start.
Okay.
But you can buy, like, the point I'm trying to make is that, like, you can buy, like, really good red sable brushes, and red sable brushes are a third to a fourth of the cost of Kolinsky's. I use Kolinsky's because, like, those are the tools I use. But I have a lot of red sable brushes that I use all the time.
Yeah.
Like, there's a company called Dick Blick. Their website is I can't remember exactly. I think it's like dickblick.com. But they're essentially just an art superstore, right? That's all they do is they just sell like brushes and stuff. Yeah, there you go. And they sell the Blick Master Strokes, which are their version of a red sable. It's their red sable brush, and those brushes are excellent. And they're like $5, $10. Like for a really big one, it's $10.
There's one about half a mile from the convention center for Adapticon. So.
Oh yeah,
That's right.
yeah, I didn't know.
If you want to stock up on painting supplies, just go to Adepticon. It's honestly the best way.
Oh yeah,
Sure,
just take one of their classes. They're like, here's all this airbrush paint.
Yeah. I paid $20 to get into a class and got like $80 in paint. I'm like, okay.
Looks like we're going to classes.
And don't forget the minis.
Yeah, and you get free minis and stuff.
even if you wanted to support your local game store with those purchases, most local game stores can order like P3's line of brushes. So the P3 Studio brushes are actually very good.
Yes.
And I think they're fine as a Klinsky, and they're not fine, just like their Studio Work Brush or whatever. I think those are Red Sable. I'm not 100% certain on that because it doesn't say for certain on the ones that I own. But they're extremely good. So you could probably get those from your local game store. Your local game store probably can get access to Vallejo. And their brushes, Vallejo has brushes, they probably have access to Kamaya.
I think
Vallejo brushes can be very good.
Vallejo distributing in the US has become really difficult now. I think they quit going through major distribution.
Yeah.
So you have to actually order direct.
The ones I really like that are available in most stores are the Privateer Studio brushes, not the work brushes. Those are synthetic.
Okay.
And the Reaper, their Pro line are really good.
We just didn't order from Reaper. I could have ordered those. Damn it. We were looking for minimum shipping too. Damn it.
Okay.
I would have gladly stocked them. So.
I don't know if they sell those through distributors or not.
No, we did direct from Reaper.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
It's also worth noting that a lot of Games Workshop's newer brushes, you have to be careful as to which ones you're ordering, and I don't know exactly what they're called. So you want to check with someone who works at the store. But they have a series of brushes that are actually very decent. They're a little bit more expensive than what you probably should pay for them. But they seem to be very good, and they're very widely available. So if you're looking for a brush that you could probably go just about anywhere and get and to be consistent, there's nothing wrong with the Games Workshop brushes, just accept the fact that you're probably going to pay a little bit more. And like all companies, Games Workshop is going to have a lower end and a higher end. And if you buy a lower end product, the same way as if you bought a lower end P3 brush, they're synthetic, they're not going to hold water, they're not going to retain, they're not going to keep their snap, they're going to fray, they're going to break, they're going to bend.
Well, plus I think they make their brushes in the UK, which naturally makes them more expensive.
That's true.
If they're
that
produced,
is true.
yeah, the export cost.
Yeah.
But that's my big thing. Anyways, as far as hobbying goes.
What I was going to say earlier is a lot of people, like the atypical person who comes in the store with a shopping bag full of his supplies is either someone who has given up on hobbying or someone who just is getting into it. Either way, those people basically are at the same step. They just got in. Like most people, you'll see like someone gets into a game and like, oh, I want to learn how to paint so I can like paint my minis. So you'll buy 6 to 10 paints. You'll buy a starter pack of brushes. It'll be between $10 and $20 for like 3 brushes. And then they'll have like X-Acto knife, maybe a pair of clippers, maybe some files, and that's pretty much where most of these people are. And then obviously they've got their super glue, maybe some plastic glue. So they'll come in and they'll try to accomplish stuff with very little knowledge other than the extreme basics. And that's usually where people will either get frustrated and quit trying to learn and then just progress in that state for a very long time, in which they become the second person, or someone will like take them under their wing and try and like show them like how to hobby. And so if you don't have an active hobby scene at your game store, like if everyone hobbies at home and just brings their stuff later, like I don't usually bring my hobby stuff to the store. It's just because, it makes a mess. Like, you got 6 people up there with all their stuff strewn out all over the place, and that's just kind of the state of it. The first thing they usually want to do, like that's exactly what they should have. If that's the way they're going to treat their stuff, that's the stuff they need to own. Like those people don't need airbrushes. Those people don't need Klinsky sables. Those people don't need, like all these higher end things. They honestly just need to learn. Like they need knowledge more than they need this equipment. But once you start taking in this knowledge, you need to start progressing your equipment at the same level. So it's just like going into the hobby or the game for the first time. The first 10 games you play, you're going to learn a massive amount of stuff, and that's going to slowly taper off as you start learning the more complex, nuanced things. It's the same thing with hobbying. As you start hobbying, like the first 10 models you paint, you're going to learn a huge amount of stuff. But if you keep all your equipment at the same level, you're going to be held back by your equipment. So the first thing I recommend most people get is a palette or a wet palette. Primarily, I think most people should go to a wet palette because there's no real reason to have a basic palette if you're going to move to a wet palette other than you want to mix
It depends
paint.
on your paint line.
Right, exactly. So, I mean,
within reason, go P3
Yeah.
and Citadel.
Yeah. If you're getting a regular paint tray, Like just a little palette. Like if you spend more than $1, I think you're probably doing something wrong. like go to Hobby Lobby, get a paint palette. Like it's this little plastic sheet. It's got a bunch of little divots in it, so you can put paint wherever you want. And you mix your paint. You don't take paint directly from a bottle because you probably need to either thin it or mix it in some way. And that's where like most people just don't know that. Like so they just take it right out of the bottle and they just paint the thick paint right on their model. Don't put water in your paint pots. It's okay to mix with water if you have it on a palette, but don't put water in your paint pots. Water will break down your paints. Moving on from there, so like you should probably get a regular palette, get a wet palette. It's like $10, maybe $20, even if you bought a store-made one. For people that don't know, a wet palette is basically this little like Tupperware type container with a sponge in it. And then you have wax paper and water. You put the water in there, you wet in your wax paper, you put it down on top of the sponge will wick up the water and put it into the wax paper. You put your paint on top of the wax paper, and it will keep your paint fresh, so your paint doesn't dry out. Like, it's to the point where, like, if you have a well-made wet palette, I've had times where, I'll stop painting, I'll close my wet palette, I'll come back 3 weeks later easily, and the paint's still fresh in the wet palette. Like, you can basically leave it in there indefinitely as long as you're not going to the extreme of, like, months. But then you come back, like, your paint's still ready to go. Like, you pick up exactly where you left off. But the only downside to a wet palette is generally you don't want to be transporting it a whole lot unless you, change out your paper a lot, because you're going to be going around, water will be splashed around inside your wet palette and get your paint all over the place. So be careful with it. Don't, just chuck it in the car. Just throw it in the back of my pickup and drive to the store. That's obviously not what you want to do. But if you got, a tackle box that keeps it sitting pretty still, then you're probably okay. Then you probably want to invest in some medium quality brushes, like some Red Sables. After you learn how to take care of your brushes, you're going to want brush soap. You want to generally know how to take care of your brushes. Know the do's and don'ts with a paintbrush. Have your junk paintbrushes. If you're not sure if you should be using your good paintbrush for it, you probably shouldn't. Err on the side of caution. Preserve your good brushes, because the whole reason you spend money on the good brush is because it lasts. There's people I've seen have brushes for 10 years. But you buy these garbage penny brushes, $1 paintbrushes at the craft store, and then you go use them for a week and they're garbage. This because they're not designed to last. It's you actually probably end up saving money with the quality paintbrushes in the long run.
Yeah, I saw a guy painting Flames of War with
craft store paint.
Yeah, no, it's craft store paintbrushes. Mm-hmm. So he was I got 200 of these for $3.
You're good job, buddy.
And he's painting.
Literally, the watercolors. They you hold the brush up, and it's just 10 black bristles. They're cut off broomstick bristles, and you're just what the fuck?
So every 5 minutes, he was okay, crap, throw away.
This one's done. Bin. Yep. Next one. So you're going to want, obviously, the modeling stuff, because you want to actually make sure models are in good shape before you start painting them. You don't want to be taking mold lines and sprue parts off after you've primed them. Let's probably talk about that, primer. Knowing what type of primer to use, and when to use it. Don't buy garbage craft store paint. Buy quality paint. Buy acrylic paint. Buy it at a game store. If you don't like GW paint or Privateer Press paint, that's fine. You go to Reaper or Vallejo. There's tons of other lines that make
Game
good
Color.
Game Color.
Yeah.
It's worth noting when we're talking about the types of paint. Also, one of the things that I want to stress enough, there's a lot of animosity towards, I only paint with this paint brand, or I only paint with this paint brand, or whatever the case may be. There's a lot of people from the UK who swear by Scale 75. It's really good paint. I love it. I don't love all of it. Mm-hmm. There's really, really good stuff from Vallejo that I love. I don't love all of it. Same thing with Games Workshop. Games Workshop's washes are exceptional. They really are. They're very good.
Outside of going to an expensive, hard to find brand, GW is probably going to be the best washes you can find pre-made in a bottle.
Yeah.
Everything else is going to be kind of make your own, mix your own at home, and that requires knowledge and time invested that most people don't have. So if you're just looking for a way to wash your models, you really can't go wrong with GW washes.
Yeah, and the point I guess I'm trying to make is that whatever paint line you go with, number one, don't feel like you have to or can only buy those paints from that company, because that's not true at all.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is, don't be afraid to experiment, try a different color, and if you're in an area where getting some of the paints is difficult, Like in Joplin, in that surround, like in my area, it's hard to find P3. If I want to get P3, I have to order it, which isn't a problem. I don't mind ordering it, or I'll buy it whenever I go up to your store, Brandon, because that's typically when I buy all my P3 paint anyway. But every store in my area carries Games Workshop. Well, guess what? I have a lot of Games Workshop paint sitting on my hobby table right now for no other reason than just I can get it. It's consistent. I know what it's going to look like. I know what the color is going to look like. So, like, it's okay to, like, buy that. And then if I want to do something different or I want to mix and match these colors, it's all acrylic paint. There's absolutely no harm in mixing and matching them. But if you are in an area where you can only get a hold of, like, Vallejo or Games Workshop or one specific brand, then, you know, buy that brand. And you'll hear people talk about how, like, I only paint with P3 because it's a true liquid pigment or some other goofy technical reason. Well, if I'm painting a model for competition, yeah, I'm probably only going to use P3 because I love P3's paints. And I'll use a little bit of Vallejo, and I'll use a little bit of Scale 75, and I'll use a little bit of MIG, like their pigments and such. But if I'm painting like a tabletop army, and I'm just like, okay, well, I have 3 squads, 4 heavy warjacks, 2 light warjacks, right? And I want a color that's going to be consistent across all these models, then look at your area and be like, okay, well, I can get Games Workshop paint. I'm going to use Games Workshop paint for this, and there's nothing wrong with that. Absolutely nothing wrong with that.
I say from where I'm sitting currently in my basement, I can see old Games Workshop line, new Games Workshop line, Minotaur, Reaper, and Vallejo, and Privateer Press. Like I have most of these lines. So
same here. Like I know Brandon, you and I are huge fans of the Badger Minotaur paint line.
Yeah.
I can look at Privateer Press, like I have their entire line now, except the new Grand King colors that came out and they're on order.
What? I had them. Like they were there.
They weren't there the last time I was up, buddy.
No, they were on the shelf this last weekend.
I didn't look last weekend. You're right. I'm sorry. I should have looked. But like, I'm also a member of your painting club too. So like, I could have saved money buying them there as well. So that is silly of me. I should have thought about that.
Okay.
But like for tabletop quality, like getting into it, you don't have to go crazy. Just
don't feel elitist on your painting. There's a lot of places you can go online to find conversion charts. They'll tell you the most similar colors or like what to highlight what colors with. That can help you with that. Feel free to spend time like doing some research on the colors you choose. Don't like just open your box like, well, guess my Imperial Fists are like auburn gold, like just because it's the closest color you have. Like, take some time, look for which paints you're going to need before you start painting something.
And I know Reaper has it, but if you go to their website, give them a picture, you can select over an area and it'll say what color they have that is close to that.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, Reaper is a pretty cool website. A lot of people underutilize that.
I want to call out something because Jeremy's mentioning Reaper an awful lot. Reaper is very good stuff. One of the things I love about Reaper paints, and I use this as a selling point because my local store carries a lot of Reaper, and I use it as a selling point for them a lot when I'm helping someone figure out how, like, what to get into it, is a lot of Reaper, and I can't remember what the name of the line, but it's basically their base line of paint, but a lot of them come packaged in triads.
Yeah.
So you have, like, the base color, you have like the shade or the base color, and then you have like the main color, and then you have the highlight, and it's all packaged for you. It's all labeled exactly like that. Base green, main green, highlight green, or something to that effect. It's always labeled like that.
31st Century used to carry that like whole line. It's a really nice way to do it because you can basically find the colors that you're looking to paint your army, and it comes with the shade and the highlight color.
Especially the skin tone ones.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
those are really nice.
I think they're just called Reaper Triads.
Yeah.
I think that's what they're called. And on top of that too, Reaper paint, I think, asterisk, that Reaper paint is made by Coat to Arms. I'm not 100% sure.
Who cares?
But it's the point I'm trying to make is that it's a very good, very quality paint that will get you very consistent results.
My biggest complaint about Reaper paint is their bottles, so that's a good thing to say about their paint.
Yep.
I don't
like Minotaur bottles either. Vallejo has slightly better bottles than Reaper, but I think I still prefer the Privateer Press pots over everything else. But I've always
the bottles.
Yeah, they're
Okay.
physical bottles.
Okay.
Yeah, not like the amount of
I
paint.
thought you were saying models.
Oh, no,
models.
no.
Okay.
Yeah, the bottles.
Bottles. Okay.
Yeah, that's my biggest complaint about Reaper paint. I've never... the bottles sometimes will dry out more often than the Vallejo ones will, but I've never had a problem with like the color or anything. Like I was saying earlier about the scaling up your equipment as you're scaling up your skills. Like basically, like as you're getting into new things, don't be afraid to try new things, because people will settle into this comfort zone, and that will kind of restrict their skill level because you can't move on to the next level. Like, and again, like people worry about the monetary investment, like a good set of quality brushes. Like you're already buying the wash brush and the tank brush and like your dry brushes.
Right.
Like you're already getting all of those. So we're talking about adding like one or two brushes to your repertoire, which
And
is
in
like
some
maybe
cases,
30,
you're spending
$40.
what, $140 on a model.
No, right, and so part of it is that like they put more weight on the models than on the models in the gaming than they do on the hobby side,
Right.
and it's really not that much more expensive. Like if you spend, even if you only get the one really nice detail brush, and you can paint like everything you need to paint at a medium intermediate level with like a number 2 brush if it's a good brush. Like obviously it's easier if you have a smaller brush, but if you like start with a number 1, maybe get an aught or a number 2 based on how you feel about the number 1. Like if it's too small or too big, based on your personal like preferences with painting. Move up. But don't be afraid to look into different priming techniques, which mostly comes from like the airbrush side of the skill level. But you can get like nice aerosol cans that you can spray, like do Citadel priming with aerosol cans.
Oh, even Krylon Gray is good.
Yeah, like go out and like do some research, like see what people are saying, like watch some YouTube videos and look at the results. Because if you just go to like a forum, you're like, hey guys, what should I use? You have no idea what they're saying is going to work or not. Like go check out YouTube, go see like people's posts, like ask people when you've seen their models, ask what they do. Like the community is your best friend when it comes to learning how to paint, because you can you can see the result, and then based on the result, reverse engineer how they did it by either talking to them or talking to people that know. And then if they find the styles that you like, because like there is no best way to paint something. Like there's all the different styles.
And remember, a model is never truly done; it's just abandoned.
Sure. No.
Amen.
So
every time I pick up one of my models, I see where I did something wrong. I'm like,
sure. Like people
I
make
can
mistakes.
I can fix that, and I can fix that, but
Yeah, and you're just gonna leave it alone.
yeah.
Well, Jeremy, you and I had that same conversation at MusonCon. I had just been given gold for my Horgel 2, and we were looking at him, and you had said, good job, like great job, proud of you, or something to that effect. And I was looking at him like, yeah, but I messed up this and I messed up that, and I did this and I did that, and I should have done this and I should have done that. And that's when you brought that up, is you're like, best painted models are never finished.
Well,
no,
the best painted models are painted. I mean,
well, that's true. That's true. But no model is ever truly finished. Like, you will always look back on a model and be like, well, I wish I would have done this. And for some people, that becomes debilitating, because you'll just get stuck in a cycle. And then for some people, they'll just be like, all right, cool, I learned a lesson. I'm going to make it better next time. But the trick to it is, like Brandon said, is to keep trying new things. Like, I never, when I started painting, would have ever thought that I would be able to get a handle on object source lighting. The first couple times I tried it, like, I don't know, have you guys seen my Sons of Brad? Like,
Nope.
Like, my Sons of Brad are, like, the worst looking, like, oh, wow, they're terrible looking. Like, but it was my first attempt at OSL, right? So it was my first attempt at saying, like, oh, well, there's flames on the back, so I'm going to make that flame show up on the army. And essentially all I did was end up painting the model and then just drowning the model in orange paint.
Nice.
Right? Because I was like, oh, that's how it looks, right? Like, the orange is supposed to get, no, it was terrible. It was absolutely terrible.
Yeah, the two hardest things to do in painting are probably object source lighting and two-brush blending.
Yeah.
I agree, 100%. Two-brush blending blows my brain out. I can't figure it out. I work on it. I'm working on it. I'll be working on it for the rest of my life, probably.
Especially when, like, the bonus you get with two-brush blending over doing, like, fading and layering, like, the bonus is so little. Like, it's so hard to tell the difference between the two if they're both
especially
done
if
well.
you have a wet palette and you can just mix the two colors already.
I think two brush blending is honestly a thing of the past. Like that's
it is.
Yeah, I think moving forward, it's really just going to keep going away. 'Cause I haven't seen anyone talk about two brush blending in like almost a decade.
If you ever watch a P3 video, they talk about two brush blending. Because that is the style that the studio started all their armies in.
Yeah, because that was the way you did it back in '95.
Yeah, exactly. And so they're kind of locked into it. Like they can't really leave it because the models have to be consistent in nature. Mm-hmm. But that you'll see it a lot there for sure.
Yay, McVeigh.
Yep. Yay, McVeigh.
So, like, honestly, the most expensive part of the hobby side is honestly just buying the paint, the physical paint pots. And a lot of people, like, aren't afraid of buying paint pots, but, like, they shy away from, like, buying a wet palette. They shy away from buying decent brushes. They shy away from buying an airbrush, buying a compressor. Like, but most of these things are noticeably cheaper than the amount of money you'll spend on paint. I spent less money on my airbrush than I did on the Minotaur paint I own. Like, that's objective. I know how much I spent on that. And I just, like, my compressor eventually died. I bought a new compressor, but, like, I've still spent way more money on paint than I have on the other equipment. So,
absolutely.
I don't know. Like, so we're talking about wet palette you can get for under $10. Let's say a full set of nice brushes, maybe $50. We'll say $50 for, like, 3 or 4 good brushes. Airbrush you can get for 40 to 60. Really reliably get for 40 to 60, if not cheaper than that. And we're talking like, unless you're going into really high-end painting, like really, really high-end painting. Like I still can't even, I've had my airbrush for probably like 5-6 years now. I still can't use it to the best of its ability by a noticeable margin. Like I still have a lot to learn on the airbrush, but I use it all the time. Like what else is there? Like that we basically covered most things you need to buy. Like everything else is like dollar store stuff basically. Like so even if you spend $200 buying the proper equipment to get for all of your painting, and that's over the course of a couple of years of learning how to hobby, like if you're spending this much money on models, like I really don't see where you can't find the $200 in a year. Like you probably have your priorities backwards if you can't find the money to buy the proper equipment.
Well, baby isn't eating tonight.
Yep, baby doesn't get shoes this week. All right, I'm gonna use the restroom. But Scott, why don't you go ahead and finish us up on the hobby topic so Richard doesn't fall asleep.
Well, that and he's been hammering
Long
Island iced tea.
He's been drinking a little bit.
Got to make it through the hobby section somehow.
I did want to offer on this hobby side of things. So one of the devices that I'm going to get here pretty soon is the ability to stream off of that camera. And so one of the things that I kind of want to do, I think it would be a lot of fun to do, is to maybe set up some time, and I'm going to start doing some hobby streams. Just sit around and paint, and people who want to join in, they can join in. I'll plug it on Muse as well as here, but I think it'd be a really cool place where people can just kind of jump in, and then we can change who the presenter is if people want to share their own work or what they're working on. And I think that'd be like a really cool way just to kind of get people a little bit more introduced, especially if you're new. Because if you're a professional quality painter, I'm not going to teach you anything that you don't already know. In fact, actually, you'll probably be teaching me a lot more than what I know currently. But if you can bring yourself to, if you're newer and you want to learn a little bit more about it, then yeah, hopefully some people will sign in, and then if we can get enough people and enough interest, then I'd like to make it a fairly regular segment.
That's cool.
Good luck with that. That actually does sound like a really good idea.
Yeah, I think it'll be really cool, because we always post the L2 Wargame battle reports, and I think it'd be cool if we had L2 Wargaming hobby stuff. I don't know what the name of it would be. I'll talk to you guys about that offline, but it'd be really cool if we could do something like that.
Well, Brandon has his own modeling with Mutalis segment, but he gets that when he can.
I've actually been trying to get back to that.
Brandon is confused by the advanced alien technology of headphones that he's owned for a year.
I'm almost out of beer.
If only you had a fridge full of it.
I'm going to go get another beer. Hold on a second while I open my fridge so I can reach for my chair.
But that wraps up the hobby segment. So I thought that was a really good segment. I think it had a lot of really good info with it. What do you guys think?
As long as one of us thinks that, it's probably okay.
Yeah.
It was okay.
I mean, it's not like these two guys haven't made me sit through crap I hate.
All right. Well, I think that pretty much wraps up today. In short, learn as much as you can about hobbying. It makes it more fun and easier. Buy good stuff to hobby with. And Scott hates sand. This has been Brandon.
This has been Richard.
Are you going to outro for me as well?
This is Jeremy. My name's Jeremy. I like 40K and hookers.
I don't really like hookers.
Is Scott here still? I think he's gone.
You got really echoey, Scott.
This has been CS.
He sounds like a demigorgon.
I'll fix it in post.
I doubt that. Scott's line gets
fair enough.
muted in post.
Sounds good.
Nice.
Sounds good.
All right. Well, thank you for
All right,
listening,
I gotta
guys.
jump off.
All right.
Goodbye
see
now.
you, Scott.
Goodbye.
Bye,
Enjoy your
Scott.
holidays.
Good night.
Merry Christmas.
Goodbye now.
Hey, Merry Christmas to you guys too.
Yeah, Merry
Love
Christmas.
you guys. Have a wonderful,
Scott.
wonderful holiday.
Scott, are you doing anything New Year's Eve?
Am I doing anything New Year's Eve? I don't know. Why? What's up?
You want to come to my house, hang out? We're going to play some GameCube, listen to some Dane Cook CDs.
I'll check with Jennifer, but I don't know if I want to away from.
Sure.
don't
It's a
know.
long drive and it's like a holiday, so.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to have some people over for New Year's.
Counterpoint. I'm bringing Costco down.
I'd be a little bit worried about a little bit of driving to Kansas City on. So, and I just got the layer of death in my life, so I'm gonna guess that's probably not going to happen.
Okay. All right. Well, goodbye then.
Goodbye forever, Scott.
Goodbye forever, Scott.
Nice knowing you.
It's like the forever
I
puppy.
want
It's forever
you to
goodbye.
know that I'll never get to see you guys again. I'm sorry.
Well, we'll just come down to you, I
I
guess.
can't understand what the fuck he's saying
You
anymore.
guys will just have to come down to me for a while for Ranger. What's the best?
Bye.
Goodbye, Scott. Scott's a demon.
I'm Batman. I have throat cancer.
I'm a demon. All right. No more headphones. Yay.
Now we can talk about how much we hate Scott.
I mean, we
I
already
mean, I
talked
hate
about
Scott.
that.
Do you hate Scott? I mean,
Yes.
Scott hates me.
Fuck that guy.
When you call 4 bullfighters in quicksand. Quattro Cinco.
Nice.
No one saw that
Oh,
coming.
that was terrible. There we go.
No one saw that coming. Scott was just like, yeah, it's thing I'm gonna. What? He's like, what did he say? Quattro Cinco. God damn.
I thought about doing a yar at the end. Just go yar. Oh god. We need to get John and Scott together in the same room and trap them.
He was not ready. That was the best part, is he wasn't ready for it.
Next time we need to be subtle about this shit. A little more subtle.
I actually wasn't planning hysterically laughing. I just couldn't stop. Like once it came out, I could just feel Scott seething through the phone. I was like, ah!
I couldn't stop laughing. It was too funny.
Oh man, that was good.
Feel Scott's rage.
Oh no, we never said spoilers. Damn it. Are we still recording?
Yeah.
Okay.
Spoilers, motherfuckers!
You can cut this out. All right, Jeremy, put this at the very beginning. There are Star Wars The Last Jedi spoilers in some part of this.
In the
Wherever
unlikely-
Jeremy puts it, probably most likely will be at the end, might be at the beginning.
I don't know, I might just cut it out and make a mini episode.
Yep.
Oh, okay. We didn't talk about it for that long, did we?
Not really.
This wasn't a particularly
In
long
the
cast,
highly
was it?
unlikely event
No,
you
we've
listen to
only
this
been recording
podcast
for
and
2
have
hours.
not seen Star Wars by the time this comes out.
I mean, yeah, this is gonna. I mean, Star Wars came out on what, like the 12th? It will have been
Okay.
20 days at least. Yeah, I mean, it'll be like a month. The problem I have more is that when someone like clearly just did not think out a scene very well, like just like bad writing, like, and I felt like the only time that was really true, like at least the most glaring problem of it, was the bomber scene from the movie. And I just told them that, but before you got on the podcast,
What?
and
Oh, what's up, Jane?
Jane is people.
You want to bark? You want to bark for the microphone, Jane?
Jane. Woof.
Oh, sorry.
Woof. All right. But the bomber scene was just clearly not well written because I hate the stupid, like, every time something might be close that it has to be, like, the nail grab on, like, the edge of a cliff. Like, we get it. Someone did it in a movie once and they made it, like, as close as you could possibly get to the edge. And now every scene ever where there's a cliff, someone has to almost fall off of it. And it's just like...
You make fire when ready? Boom.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just 30 seconds. I mean, 3 minutes to firing position.
But, yeah, so that was a little annoying because it's like, I don't need to see the person crawling around inside the spaceship. They don't need to kick a ladder 14 times. Like, get over it. Like,
just, like, have them drop the bombs and be done.
The fucking thing should have blown up, like, 2 solid minutes before she hit the button. And then not only does she have to, like, kick the ladder so many times and fall down the shaft, like, all these things, but then she has to, like, miss the catch on the thing, and then, like, last second, like, ninja grab. Like, get over yourself. Like, it's just push the fucking button! Like, the fact that there's a remote control, like Jeremy pointed out earlier, is ridiculous. Like, it should be, like, a little wristband button or something.
My biggest thing was, there's a couple scenes in the movie that are like that. You don't need to unnecessarily build the drama.
Yeah. And it's false drama, too. Like, no one actually cares.
It's obvious, like, when Leia's looking at the tactical readout of lost units, it's obvious they're losing. Like, you can build the drama for the character knowing that she's going to die doing this.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you can build that drama just by having a look in the face and shots of all the other bombers going down, and then seeing her,
or you could have cut to her sister looking out of the window or something, and be like, no, and then her ship blows up, but they already dropped the bombs. Like, there's all kinds of things you can do to get the emotional reaction that isn't a 3-minute scene of her kicking a ladder. Like, come on.
I think we need to get Jane a microphone.
That's the worst thing about it. And, like, it's semi-forgivable, but it's just bad writing. Like, whoever was in charge of screenwriting for that scene is fucking stupid. Like, that felt so like some intern literally got put in charge of writing the scene. And they were just like, well, I saw this in a movie one time. Let's just add all of the super dumb tropes. Like, okay. And then, obviously, the majority of the times when Finn and Rose were on that dumb planet, like, that was all, like, felt like wasted time. Like, you could have streamlined that process a little bit.
Yeah.
And it really wasn't too bad until they tried to escape. Like, they streamlined it pretty well up to the point, like, where they were in the jail cell, and then the guy was kind of cool, and then them getting out of the complex was fine, but then, like, running around in the woods, like, who the fuck cares? Like, why couldn't they have just ran to, like, a ship and, like, took off?
I actually think it was too streamlined, which isn't a bad thing, because I think it was a waste of time, but, like...
It's too streamlined, but it was a waste of time.
It's still, like, 30-minute waste of time.
We're not recording this, right? Like, we're not going to spoiler the movie for everybody?
Oh, we are.
Okay, we'll definitely put the spoiler warning on this.
Nah.
This is going to go at the end, right? I'll just do it when we wrap up.
Sure.
And when we introduce. Just don't leave this in the front. I'm going to blame you. Everyone's going to send you the death threats. People have done a pretty good job of no spoilers. I don't want to be the first people to do that.
Have they?
I haven't seen any.
It's been a week since the movie came out.
I literally saw it like 9 p.m. opening night, so there was no opportunity for me to get spoilers.
Oh, there definitely was. Like, no. I had Force Awakens spoiled for me like 3 days before it came out.
Rey's a Jedi. Spoilers. Like, I don't know what...
Rey wasn't a Jedi.
She's still not a Jedi.
That is correct.
Is Luke a Jedi?
Luke's a Jedi. Yoda said he was a Jedi. He's a fucking Jedi. Those are the fucking rules. But,
okay.
Anyway. But yeah, those were the only 2 scenes I really didn't like. Everything else was just like, you know, like, maybe you could say I would have preferred other things to happen, but I didn't dislike what did happen. Like, the only 2 scenes in the entire movie that were, like, really dumb was the bomber scene and then, like, them running around on Tauntauns, where the fuck they were. And that was just, like, this is more for just, like, this is the way they decided to get them out of there, and it's, like, the Rose thing. But
it's
like,
a fun thing.
Hey, obviously no one gives
remember
a shit
the
about
one
Rose.
cool thing about Episode 1, the pod racing?
I mean,
but,
you said something that wasn't Darth Maul, I'm confused.
Part of that movie. And it also wasn't as bad as sand. Everyone hates sand.
Yep.
Please
Fucking-
don't ever quote that movie quote to me again, as long as we're live.
So,
But I
And
do,
would you
do,
say-
I do hate
we will
sand.
no longer be friends, and
Well,
I
so,
will hunt you
Scott,
down, and I
would
will
you say
kill you.
that movie feels coarse to you and it's irritating?
Die in a fire, Richard. Die in a fire, buddy.
I probably will
Just because I
someday.
love you.
That's fine. I ain't scared.
I like you enough, I'd stomp you out.
Builds character.
So, Scott, explain to me as briefly as possible what a Hobbysode is, so I can veto it.
All right, give me a sec.
Do you have to figure out how to explain to people that you're okay with their standard of painting?
Can I be firmly against their standard of painting as well? Because I feel like I want to be a bandwagoner on this topic.
So this is the time of year when there's really not much going on in Warmachine. I thought it might be kind of cool just to talk about, first off, what we're all currently working on. Second, of the things that we're working on, what are we doing? How are we doing it? Maybe talk a little bit about the importance or why painting is valuable to the hobby. Especially because right now, without a whole lot going on with the holidays, a lot of people tend to end up with a little bit more spare time on their hands after Christmas is done. So you kind of have like this lull where you have like these pockets of time where you're not doing much. So it's a great time to do some hobby work. So I figure it might be a pretty cool topic to talk about.
So to answer those in order, what we're currently working on, I'm not. Why it's important to the hobby, it's not. And let's play some more games.
Pretty much with Brandon on this.
Anyway, all right. So yeah, we can go through that stuff.